After the Sabbath, at dawn on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to look at the tomb. There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down down from heaven, and going to the tomb, rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothes were white as snow. The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men. The angel said to the women, "Do not be afraid, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he has risen from the dead and is going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him. Now I have told you." So the women hurried away from the tomb, afraid yet filled with joy, and ran to tell his disciples. Suddenly Jesus met them. "Greetings," he said. They came to him, clasped his feet, and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, "Do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee. There they will see me." May God add his blessing to the word.
I don't know about you, but the fall, Kindle kids can be dismissed at this time. Somebody's giving me sign language back there. Kindle kids are dismissed to go at this time. The fall season is an interesting time of the year. The temperature transitions. I stand in front of my closet and say, long sleeve, short sleeve, jacket, no jacket, what do I do today? And I looked at the projected, and I said, it'll be a little cold at the beginning, but I'm going short sleeves. As I stepped out of my house, the guy was walking his dog, major parka coat on with the hood up. Did not seem that cold to me. The temperature transitions are there. The falling leaves are there. You've heard me complain year after year. I have fall that begins at the front of my house in August because we have sycamore trees, and they fall through August and September. And just as I get that all kind of done, the backwoods start to fall, and we start all over. So I do like the sports transitions for this time of year. Baseball is finishing up. Yankees, first time, 15 years that they're in the World Series. I'm excited about that. I can root for Phillies, I can root for Pirates, I can root for New York. Grew up close to all three, but I'm a Yankee fan, I'll be honest. Football's in full swing. I was told on Friday that Easton football game was going to be a good one. And Friday night, it was a good one. Someone said in the paper, it's good to see Easton football relevant again because they've not been very good the last couple of years. So that's they won't have one loss this year. That was it for those of you that are Liberty, right? Freedom. Who'd they be? Freedom. Yeah. Well, sorry for the Freedom fans here, but and then basketball and hockey are starting. I don't think anybody pays attention to basketball till Christmas. That's when they have a big day and try to get you to start watching there. And I've never been a hockey fan. She's from Canada, so we still get along, I hope. Now, with all that said, it is time for me to talk about the ridiculousness of Hallmark Channel. I like picking on them. I watch them, but it also they had a couple of fall movies. They are full bore into Christmas movies already. And some of them I like, some I just laugh at. But we tape them and we can just delete them as fast as we watch them. The thing about watching a movie on TV or in the theaters, you wait about 2 hours to find some sort of resolution to the situation that they get. The Hallmark movies all end the same way. They kiss. Okay, that's it. Sorry if I ruined it. That's what happens at the end. Except for the mysteries. There's some mysteries, but they kiss there too. You wait 2 hours for the resolution, and everything looks like it's going to go together, and then you're left flat. Well, what happens now? We've had all this tension. Not a lot, but we've had some tension through the whole movie. I'd like to see what happens now. And so they make a sequel. How many think the sequel is as good as the first? I mean, so I don't know what you do with this. Now, I say all that because we're finishing Matthew. But this is not the end. It's the end of Jesus' story here on earth. But he left the story to yet be told through his body, the church of Jesus Christ. And we need to see that we're the continuation. We're the sequel. Luke wrote a gospel and the book of Acts to really kind of get us kicked off. But that story is being written over and over again. And we don't really arrive. We don't really arrive. The last chapter ends with the Great Commission, which is a great thing to lead into our missions conference. But I want to focus on a verse I just read this morning in my devotions, 1 Peter 2:24. 1 Peter 2:24. Let's read that together. You can see that? He himself bore our sins in his body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed. I noticed one 2-letter word in that verse today that I wasn't expecting. That we should live in righteousness is the way I think of it. That we live in righteousness because Jesus is our righteousness, so we can live in righteousness. I said, no, it says 2, and I looked it up in multiple translations. 2 means I'm still progressing toward righteousness. And that was also in the verses for the call to worship, where the part of it said, at present we do not yet see everything in subjection to him. We're talking about a victory that was won in the empty tomb. And yet that victory is still ongoing. We're still seeing it. I am positionally righteous in Jesus Christ. God sees me. He sees the righteousness of Jesus. And in my position, I am secure. In Jesus, I am saved as a believer. But practically, I am always moving to righteousness. Because, boy, I struggle. And if you don't admit that you struggle, that puts you in a bad place. We all struggle. The more righteous we think we are, the less righteous we really are. Because it's a work that God is doing in you. And then we need to see that. So, in Jesus I am saved. In the world I'm a work in progress. And we need to hold on to that. The one thing I like, there's one more show I want to talk about that Nancy and I watch pretty regularly, The Voice. If you've ever seen the talent show, it's about, we like the first couple of weeks better, and then it's okay after that. But they have 4 chairs, and they listen without looking at the person sing, and the judges decide if they want to turn around and coach them into the show, that they're welcome into the show. So many times, and they don't do it as much, but there are times when no chairs turn. And you're watching the poor person sing their heart out. But just begging, you see in their eyes, please somebody turn, please somebody turn. And when they turn, the judges all feel awful. And they try to say things to encourage it. Many times they'll say, you're good enough to do this. Don't stop. You're going to make it. And I listen and I'm thinking, how many of those people that they say are going to make it are really going to make it? The entertainment field's a tough one. Did you get the email from Jessica Lynch? It's not Lynch anymore. She got married. They're going to another country. Did anyone else get that in the missions committee? Do you remember where they're going? It's not Kazakhstan, but it's somebody that they knew from Kazakhstan. Anyway. What's that? Yes, it's Iraq, yeah. I knew it was easier to say. I couldn't remember which one. If you heard her testimony, she wanted to go into the acting field. And she said, I learned that all I would have to do my whole life is promote myself for the hopes of getting a decent part. And I realized I want to do something more with my life than that. So she went into the mission field. And for many years, she served in Kazakhstan with a local college and did their theater department. And she was there as a witness for Christ. I can say that now. She's not there, okay? Just understanding, It's a hard field. But they want to encourage him, so they tell him, you're going to make it. Just don't give up. Don't give up. Sometimes people, time to give up. Move on to something else that the Lord wants you to do. That's hard to say, but it followed. Now, where am I going with all this? My proposition this morning is Jesus' victory is secure, but not yet fully revealed. I'm here to tell you as a believer, you're going to make it. You're going to make it. I am absolutely sure, as a believer in Christ, you are going to make it. So as we talk about Jesus' victory today, I want you to remember that. Oh, but I struggle so much. I've been a believer since age 5. I'm 61 now. And just thinking about how long I've walked with him, and I say, boy, I think I should be so much farther along than I am. But I'm going to make it. Because Jesus has secured my victory in his victory. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to look at the Gospel of Matthew chapter 28. Let me pray, and we'll get into the 3 victories that we're going to look at. Father, I thank you. I thank you for the story that Alethea has led us in singing about. It's kind of weird. In the midst of all these fall transitions, we're doing Easter right now. But that's where we are in the book of Matthew. And I've so enjoyed the study in this book, not just giving a quick lip service to a couple of the events of Jesus at the end of his ministry. We've had some time to really look at the passion of Christ. And I pray that it encourages us to know that the Christian life is a process. We are transitioning from the flesh to the spirit, but the flesh is so much with us. I pray that you would help us to learn a few lessons today about the victories we can claim. And when we fail, that we claim most of all that your mercies are new every morning. I pray that we would know that we're going to make it. I pray that, Lord, that you'll have mercy on me, a sinner, that all the thoughts that have been going through my head this week about this passage would come out clear enough to encourage people to rely on the Spirit to walk more closely with you. It's in Jesus' name, your name, Jesus, that I pray. Amen. The first thing we see is the victory over sin's curse. The victory over sin's curse. Verses 1 through 3 of 28 that Rod's already read. After the Sabbath, I want you to hear the references to creation in these as I read. After the Sabbath, toward the dawn of the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to see the tomb. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. I was thinking about creation here because last week I mentioned it, that creation is groaning. Let's look at that verse. Next slide. We're talking about the curse on creation. Next slide. Yeah, that's the one. Let's read that together if we could. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. We've been thinking about that regarding hurricanes. I don't live in an earthquake zone, but if you've ever been through one, I mean, shaking a little bit here. I missed the one that happened before. I don't know what I was doing. I was moving around. I didn't realize that there was one here. But to think about the shaking of the earth. And we said that happened when Jesus died on the cross, and it's happening as he comes out of the tomb. He was already out, but anyway, it happens. And that's something, I don't know how I would handle that. I've been in part of pretty bad storms, but I don't know how I'd handle with the very earth shaking. I would like to say to the world, you're going to make it, but it's not. It's going to be destroyed, and a new heaven and a new earth are going to be made. That's just what's all the creation things. But creation's important, and sometimes we get through it, and we have to believe in a creator God, or none of this makes sense. We cannot, we're sinners against our creator, and that's why Jesus had to come. So creation is important. There is a curse on creation. Creation is groaning, but we have hope that he will make a new creation, just like he made a new us in salvation. a new birth. The earth will have that new birth. So we look forward. The victory is secure that creation will be reborn. There will be a new earth. But for now, we just claim the victory and ask God to bless the creation, even when it rebels against us and hurts us. The next thing in verses 4 and 5, and for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. But the angel said to the woman, do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. The curse of fear. As I get older, I'm finding myself more and more afraid. I don't like it. Every set of steps that I approach to go down, those first 2 steps scare me. I'm 6'3", and if I fall on the ground, that's bad enough. If I fall down the stairs, I don't even want to think about it. And there's just certain things when I'm driving and my eyes can't quite see. I keep saying I get angry because I'm not a flight person. I'm a fight person. So when I'm afraid, my natural response is, ugh. But I don't have to be afraid. And I keep reminding myself that I don't have to be. It doesn't go away, but I keep reminding myself that I don't have to be. There are 2 types of fear. The fear that draws you to God and the fear that draws you away from God. We are called to the fear and a reverence toward a loving God. As 1 John said, perfect love casts out fear. So if I'm afraid, God, I'm telling you, I don't believe you love me right now. And he doesn't want me to live that way because he loves me. He can't take his eyes off me. And the same is true for you. So we have this curse of fear. We don't have to fear God's wrath. Jesus took it. He took all of God's wrath for our sin on him. But with reverence, we can come into the presence of a holy God because he declares us righteous positionally, and we can know of his love. I hope that we remember that. There's victory over sin's curse, the curse on creation, the curse of love, and of course the curse of death. The biggest response I got last week when I was talking about health problems, I said, any of you relate? That was the biggest amen I heard that morning. Because the body is decaying. The body is decaying. But there's a new body coming. There's a new body coming. So the curse of death. Now, let me read verses 6 through 8. He is not here, for he has risen. As he said, come see the place where he lay. Then go and quickly and tell his disciples that he is risen from the dead. And behold, he is going before you to the Galilee. There you will see him. See, I have told you. So they departed quickly from the tomb with fear and great joy and ran to tell his disciples. Last week I mentioned about Jesus' power over the women, his power over the struggle between men and women. He elevated women like no other. And we need to remember that. But as I was giving them all their kudos for God choosing to make them the first ones to see that Jesus had risen, I'm going to, if you jump over don't do it, but if you want to, read the end of the book of Mark. Now, there's a section at the end of Mark that people doubt was originally part of the book because where it seems to end seems odd. But in Mark, it kind of ends at this point. It says, for they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. I wouldn't want the book of Mark to end there either. So somebody added something about Jesus' power and so forth. It's not wrong. Just we have to look at it and say the oldest manuscripts don't have that. So the women did finally do what they were told to do, but they struggled at first. He said, go quickly. If you read and believe what Mark said, they didn't right away. And then they realized they had to. So they overcame their fear. And they went and told. Now, why did they overcome their fear? Because they were probably around when Jesus raised other people from the dead. Jesus raised 3 people from the dead. The widow's son at Nain, he was walking by a funeral and saw that this woman was going to be destitute, and he just raised them up. And then Jairus' daughter, he was a religious leader in Capernaum, and he took Jesus to his house, and she had fallen asleep, and Jesus raised her up, the daughter. And then, of course, Lazarus, which was probably the most earth-shaking, because he was dead for 4 days. Plenty of time for decay and all those things. And Jesus raised him up. So these people, these women knew that this could be true, but as of yet, in Matthew, they haven't seen him. But they did go to tell. They went to tell. So, the curse on creation, the curse of fear, the curse of death. I want you to understand, sin's curse is overcome by Jesus' love. And you see that particularly in this passage. I'm going to make a statement, a positive statement about all these points. But sin's curse is overcome by Jesus' love. I already said perfect love casts out fear. Look at what verses 9 and 10. As they're going, at some point, behold, Jesus met them and said, greetings. And they came up and took hold of his feet and worshipped him. Then Jesus said to them, do not be afraid. Go and tell my brothers to go to Galilee, and there they will see me. Again, Matthew doesn't do this chronologically. There's a lot of things when you compare the Gospels of how that day played out, how that week played out. But eventually they did get to Galilee, and Jesus met them there. But the fact that I want you to see how much they loved him. They thought he was gone. The best of them didn't believe what he said he would come back. John was the first man to kind of get it. The women got it first. And to see them, but it's out of love. It's out of love. And in the presence of his love, all these curses that we struggle with can find their place, can be put away. We don't have to live with the struggles of creation, the struggles with fear, or the struggles with our poor health leading to death. We don't have to be afraid of those things. His perfect love is with us. So that's, the first 10 verses are read many times on Easter Sunday at the park. This is a key passage. The other Gospels do it a little bit differently, but I'm trying to stay with Matthew because we're finishing up Matthew. Victory over sin's curse. Do you believe it? Do you believe sin's curse? As much as we still struggle, the victory is secure. The victory is sure. We're going to make it. The next victory I want you to see is victory over Satan's lies. And Satan's not necessarily mentioned in this passage, but Jesus taught Satan is the father of all lies. So any lie that you see is from Satan. So let me read verse 11. This is getting to the soldiers now. While the women were going, behold, some of the guard went into the city and told the chief priests all that had taken place. Why didn't they report to their commanding officer? They thought they might be put to death. You had one job. The body's gone. What did you do? So they go to the chief priests, and the chief priests, they're the ones who really want to foster a lie. And I'm going to call this first one a protective lie. If you think you're a truth teller, I just want to ask yourself, do you ever shade a story to make yourself look better? That's a lie. Oh, it's not really. No, the truth. Are you willing to let people see you in all the truth of your life? Because until you are, you're kind of bound. Kind of bound by it. Because you're so in love with yourself that you don't want people to think bad of you, and you want to always make sure you look good. And that's kind of what's going on here. They knew a big thing happened. No one's going to believe this. Our lives are at stake. Let's go to these religious people and see if they can help. I do think these were Romans. I didn't dig into that exactly, because they both, the religious people had their guard as well. But I'm not sure. I think Pilate said, here's a guard. I think he gave some Romans for this detail as well. Regardless, they went to the chief priests. They said, protect us. The truth is going to get us killed here. So what do you want us to do? So God has a victory over that kind of lie. He has a victory over the lie that you have to tell to make yourself feel better about yourself. Confession of your sin means you'll say the same thing about your life that God would say about your life. The fact checker, the ultimate fact checker. The things that you say about yourself, would God agree? And I think that's important. So we have protective lies, which relate to the love of self. We also have purchased lies. Look at 12 and through 13. And when they had assembled with the elders and taken counsel, they gave a sufficient sum of money to the soldiers. The religious leaders are paying the soldiers off. And they said, tell people his disciples came by night and stole him away while we were asleep. Now, if the disciples ever came to court, much later they did, for this supposed act, they could be put to death. But they don't care. We do not want any sense of a story that Jesus rose from the dead. So they purchased a lie, and we saw in Judas, he didn't know what to do with Jesus. He finds, well, at least I'm going to make some money off of it. What will you give me to betray him? So if our protective lives are about the love of self, our purchase lives are about the love of money. And when I'm sitting there doing my taxes and I'm thinking, how can I report this in the best way possible? How can I report this in the right way? Which question am I asking? Which question am I asking? But people say, I'm doing my best to do my taxes. How will I know if I got it right? I said, when you're audited, they'll tell you. That's no comfort. But you do your best and trust the Lord. Ask yourself, what's your goal? What's your goal? As you're doing, I'm trying to protect my money, and I'm willing to shade the truth there a little bit. I just move this. So protective lies, love of self, purchase lies, love of money. The last thing I'm going to say, protected lies. One of the things after receiving the money, that didn't get them completely out of hot water. Verse 14 says, and if this comes, the religious leaders are talking to the soldiers, if this comes to the governor's ears, we will satisfy him and keep you out of trouble. So they took the money and did as they were directed, and this story has been spread among the Jews to this day. A lot of people say, yeah, that was, I don't know a lot. Most historians, secular historians, agree something happened there. From not just the Bible, but from other reports in history. Something happened there. And how are you going to be? It's called the spin zone. You spin it. You spin it to make it say what you want it to say. I'm not going to talk about the election, no matter how much I try. Plenty of illustrations, but no, that's not good. So, do you have victory over Satan's lies in your life? Well, I feel pretty good about that. Well, wait for the next lie. Satan tempted Eve with lies, and she gave in. And gave it to her husband, and he gave in. Jesus, the second Adam, was tempted by Satan, and he did not give in, because he quoted the truth. So Satan's lies are overcome by Jesus, who is the truth, but also the truth that he speaks. The best way to know a lie is to know the truth. You've heard that illustration. I've been sharing it for years, and many other people have. If you're trying to look for counterfeit money, don't study counterfeit money. Study the real thing so that you can see that it doesn't match. And so the more we know the truth, the more we can stand against the lies about self, about money, about our position. I'm afraid I want to lose what I have. Trust God. Trust Jesus, the truth. Speak the truth. And you're in a spiritual battle with that. So you need to recognize the victory that Jesus has over Satan's lies. The third victory, and this is probably a summation of them all, victory over sin. Victory over sin. Look at verse 16, 17. Now the 11 disciples went to Galilee, to the mountain to which Jesus had directed them. And when they saw him, they worshipped him, but some doubted. This is a pretty interesting group of men and women. Whatever's going on here, they see him, they worship him, but there's still doubts. Doubting Thomas is not mentioned in this gospel. He's in the Gospel of John. Doubts are real. Doubts are okay. God's not threatened by your doubts. The thing I want to say about this victory over sin, this victory involves sinners. God uses sinners to reach other sinners. We are going to stumble. Don't wait to witness until you get yourself act completely together. It's never going to happen. That's a lie of Satan. You're not good enough to witness. Just keep your mouth shut. No, he wants all of us with where we are, honestly facing who we are as a believer in Jesus Christ, to tell others. So, victory over sin, it involves sinners. He's using sinful people to write the rest of the story. He's giving the truth to his disciples and the church. and saying, you keep going. You keep going. And then look at verse 18. And Jesus came and said to them, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. This victory that we're talking about depends on Jesus' authority. Again, with the verses that we looked at earlier in the call of worship, we don't yet see him in charge, but he is. We just have to wait for it to be fully revealed. We need to see his victory completely revealed. All authority is given to him. That's hard. For the bad things that happen, we say, well, Jesus, if you have all authority, why did you let that happen? That's a whole other topic. The victory involves sinners. The victory depends on Jesus' authority. And then, as we wrap up, the victory is found in the Great Commission. Look at verse 19. He said to them, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age. This victory is found in the Great Commission. What do I mean by that? Well, the positive statement I would make here is sin's power is overcome by, what do I see in the Great Commission? Salvation. I see sanctification. I see service. I'll talk about that more next week. What does it really mean to obey the Great Commission? To obey that command. We're to get people saved. We're to teach them how to live so they can live more closely to Jesus and be sanctified. Sanctified just means set apart. And we're to teach them how to serve. One of the best ways for you to grow in your faith is to tell others about it. Oh, they're going to ask me questions I don't know. That's good. Tell them I don't know. I'll go find out. And you'll study more and you'll grow more. Salvation, sanctification, and service. That is the best way to conquer sin in this world today. I hope you get out and vote. But I don't have hopes that the vote is going to conquer sin. We should be a part because we live in a free nation and we should take advantage of that. You better register because the 21st is the deadline in PA. I think we're already past the deadline in New Jersey. So 21st is tomorrow, by the way, I think. So I want you to vote. I want you to pray about your vote. But that's not how we're going to change the world. We're going to change the world through salvation, sanctification, and service. And if it does, like the dispensationalists, I'm one, say, it's just going to get worse. It's just going to get worse until Jesus takes us home and comes back and makes it all better. We just need to continue to be faithful with salvation, sanctification, and service. So my conclusion is this. As we await the full revelation of Jesus' victory, lean into his loving presence. Lean into his loving presence. I've heard that phrase a lot. First, I didn't like it. I'm learning to like it. To lean in. To lean. That means don't just hear it, but really get to figure out what that means. His presence. And I want to close by sharing what we talked about in prayer meeting on Wednesday night. That I've been meditating on this verse since we talked about it. And it's from Psalm 34, a great psalm to memorize. If you want to memorize a psalm other than the 23rd or the 1st, they're great psalms to memorize as well. There's a lot of good things in Psalm 34. But the two verses we looked at, I think you can see it. Let's read those verses together. When the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them out of all their troubles. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. When I hear that the Lord is going to deliver me out of all my troubles, one of the guys in the prayer meeting that was at church, he said, when? And my next question was, does it say when? No. But it says it will happen. I will be delivered out of all my troubles. While I'm waiting, what do? That's what the second verse says. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted. When my heart is breaking, I have to look for his presence. I have to know his presence. And when my spirit feels crushed, best way to keep something from being crushed is to fill it with something stronger. I'm not a scientist. I don't want to play one on TV either. I just think that makes sense. So if his spirit is in my spirit, I won't be crushed. Because he won't be crushed. So his presence, I want to lean into his presence. So I'll make these 3 summary statements and say, God promises to hear and deliver us when we cry for help. Beauty of prayer. You are invited to pray. You don't have to come to a prayer meeting, do it, but I suggest you do. We have a ball. We really have a good time. God promises to hear and deliver us when we cry for help. God promises to be near while we wait for deliverance. This is an ongoing thing. There are projects that I've been trying to get done forever. I got a couple done this week. And when I got them done, I said, I don't know what the big deal was all the time. The key am I walking with Jesus while I'm trying to get those projects done? While we wait for deliverance, while we wait for something to happen, lean into his presence. And remember that God fills us with his Spirit to save us from being crushed in spirit. I hope Matthew's been fun. It's been 2 years. I started the genealogy of Matthew in the Advent season of 2022. That's how long it's been. And then we went through Matthew and got through more than half of it. Now, we took breaks. If you remember, I take breaks from time to time. It's okay to do that. But I've really enjoyed this last section of study, because usually we rush through it at Easter time. It's been fun to see all the things that Jesus did with his disciples. And I pray that most of all today, we would remember to lean into his loving presence while we're waiting for the full revelation of all that he has promised. Again, if you do not know Jesus as your Savior, this just doesn't make sense. It's just wishful thinking. With the Spirit of God in me as a believer, it is true. I guarantee you. And if the Spirit of God comes into you at salvation, I guarantee you, you're going to make it. Father, I thank you for this day. I pray that you would help us to see whatever it is we are struggling with, whatever struggles we have. I pray that we can lean into you, lean to know that, Jesus, you are here with us through the power of the Spirit, and we can know you. I pray that the Word of God would be sown into our lives, and Jesus, you as the way, the truth, and the light will help us to live this life until you return to take us home. I don't know what heaven's going to be like. I have some pictures in my mind, but I know it's only going to be great because you're there. Well, you're here with us now. We don't see it as clearly. Help us to see it more clearly. It is in Jesus, it's in your name I pray. Amen. Let's stand as we sing.
Is crowned with glory now. The Savior knelt to wash our feet. Now at his feet we bow. The one who bore our sin and shame, now robed in majesty, the radiance of perfect love now shines for all to see. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. The tomb where soldiers watched in vain was borrowed for 3 days. His body there would not remain. Our God has robbed the grave. Our God has robbed the grave. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. Your name is victory. All praise will rise to Christ our King. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. By your Spirit I will rise from the ashes of defeat. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. In your name I come alive to declare your victory. The resurrected King is resurrecting me. The resurrected King is resurrecting me.
Let's pray. Father, I thank you. I thank you for the truth of that song. I thank you for the truth of Easter. I thank you for the truth of your word. And mostly, I thank you for the truth embodied in your Son. Jesus, help us to follow you as we leave this place in the power of the Spirit that you sent to us. Let us live to make a difference in this world. And now may the loving God, power of God, which raised Jesus to new life, strengthen you in hope, enrich you with his love, and fill you with joy in faith. Amen.